All right, this is a continuation of section 6.5, and we're dealing with complex numbers and the trigonometric form of a complex number. So here you see what we have is we have the complex number here written in trig form, and what we want to do is we want to write it in standard form, or just write it in our complex number form. Our complex number is z equals a plus bi. So what we need to do is we need to figure out what is a equal to and what is b equal to, and then we're going to put them back in here. All right, what we know is that a is equal to r cosine of theta. Well, here my r is the square root of 8, and cosine of the angle is cosine of negative pi over 3. That means this is equal to the square root of 8 times, and the cosine of negative pi over 3 is 1/2. This is equal to 2 square roots of 2 times 1/2, which is the root of 2. So we know the a value is the root of 2. Let's go ahead and find the b value. So I know the b value is equal to the r of sine theta. And my b is then equal to, you have this r, which is the square root of 8. So this is our r value, and this is our theta, sine of negative pi over 3. This is equal to the root of 8 times, and the sine of negative pi over 3 is negative root 3 over 2. So this is 2 roots of 2 times negative root 3 over 2, which equals the negative root of 6. All right, so here, that's our b value. So here's our complex number. Z equals root 2 minus root 6i, or 1.4 minus 2.4i. There you have it. So there's going from trig form back to complex. You just have to substitute the angle and the r value in. All right, the next thing that we're going to do is look at how do you multiply and divide complex numbers. So let's first look at the formulas. Here, these are two complex numbers, and those complex numbers are written in trig form. And we've got a formula for the multiplication of those two. So it is, you multiply the r's together, r1 times r2. Then you add the angles, cosine of theta 1 plus theta 2, plus I sine of theta 1 plus theta 2. So in multiplication, you multiply and then you add the angles. You can look at the division here, and you're going to want to probably pause the video and make sure that you get these equations written down. But in division, you are dividing by the r1 and r2, and then you subtract your thetas. Subtract your thetas. All right, let's go ahead and look at, we got two examples that relate the multiplication and division of complex numbers. Let's go ahead and do the multiplication. So if I want to do z1 times z2, it equals 2 times 8. And I've got cosine of, I need to add the angles together. So I need to add 2/3 plus 11/6. What I'm going to do is change that to 4/6 plus 11/6 is 15 over 6. And we'll come back to that. Plus I sine, and the nice thing is that this is also 15 over 6. So the angle is the same each time that you add. Now 15/6 is, or can be reduced down. So it's cosine of, let's go ahead and divide them by 3, so 5/2 pi, plus I of sine 5/2 pi. cosine of 5 halves pi. 5 halves pi is located right, let's see, this is 1 half, 2 halves, 3 halves, 4 halves, 5 halves right here. 5 halves, and so the cosine is 0, so it's 16 times 0 plus, and the sign would then be 1, I times 1. So we are looking at the complex number of 0 plus 16i, which equals 16i. So this is the answer to the product of those two complex numbers. All right, so right here, this is the trig form of the product. And this is the complex form. You might be required to write them in both forms. So both of these would be considered the result of. They're just different forms. All right, let's look at the division. So my division would be z1 divided by z2, and we divide the r's, and then we subtract the angles. So cosine of 300 minus 75 is 225, and 225. All right, 225 is located right here. So we've got 3, and then the cosine of that angle is negative root 2 over 2, plus I sine of 225, which would be times negative root 2 over 2. So this equals here negative 3 root 2 over 2 minus 3 root 2 over 2 times I. So this is the complex form right here. And then this is obviously the trig form. If you divide that and make that 3, that would be the trig form. And that's how you do the multiplication and division of those complex numbers.